And in the distance, across countless worlds, beings lifted their heads toward the same stars, whispering the same name that had now become a symbol of freedom: Kale, the Dragonborn, the fire that rises from the ashes. The war that began with a single forgotten cry had spread across the stars. Entire systems burned, empires fell, and the name Kale the Dragonborn echoed through the galaxies like thunder. Yet Kale knew the fight was not over. The Varneth Empire was wounded, but not dead. There was still one voice whispering behind. Their armies, one mind that had ordered the experiments that began his pain, the one they called the Architect. Now, after years of fire and rebellion, Kale stood at the edge of the Empire's capital world, Varnus Prime, a planet of shining towers and iron skies, the heart of everything cruel. The rebel fleet hovered beyond its orbit. Dragons filled the void like living constellations, their wings glowing brighter than the sun's. Kale stood on the command deck of the lead ship, his golden eyes fixed on the planet below. Draxon rumbled beside him. "Once we start, there is no turning back." Kale nodded slowly. "We never turned back since the day they threw me away." He raised his hand, and a circle of fire appeared above the planet. It wasn't a weapon. It was a warning. The final dawn had come. The Empire sent out its last fleet, vast and silver like blades drawn from the night. But the dragons didn't retreat. They soared forward, roaring like storms. Every world Kale had freed sent ships to join the final stand. Humans, aliens, even former Varneth soldiers who had seen the truth. As the battle raged, Kale's heart guided him toward the planet's surface. He descended through the clouds on Draxon's back, fire trailing behind them like a comet. They landed at the top of the tallest tower, the throne of the Architect. The doors opened, and Kyle walked inside. The hall was vast and dark, filled with strange machinery that pulsed like veins. At its center sat a figure of silver skin and golden eyes, the same color as Kale's. "You finally came," the Architect said. His voice was calm, almost kind. "My greatest creation." Kale stopped. "You're no creator. You're a coward hiding behind wires and lies." The alien smiled faintly. "You misunderstand. I made you to be perfect, human flesh fused with dragon fire. You are proof that I was right." Kyle's voice was steady. "You didn't make me." "She did." The Architect's smile faded. "The dragon." "Yes," Kyle said. "Vera. She taught me what your kind never understood. Power means nothing without heart." The Architect rose, his body shifting with metallic grace. "Heart? Love? These are weak illusions. Only control lasts. When you die, I will harvest your core and create thousands more like you." Kyle closed his eyes. "You never learned." Flames spread from his hands, rising like wings of light. Fire can be controlled, but never owned. The Architect struck first. Energy beams shot across the hall, cutting through the metal walls. Kyle dodged and countered with waves of golden fire. The entire tower shook. Outside, lightning cracked across the storm clouds as dragons clashed with the Empire's last machines. Kyle leapt forward, their powers colliding in a burst of blinding light. The Architect's strength was immense. He had the knowledge of ages and the cruelty of gods, but Kyle had something stronger: purpose. The alien grabbed Kyle by the throat, lifting him off the ground. "You are nothing without me," he hissed. Kale smiled faintly through the pain. "Then why are you afraid?" He placed his hand on the alien's chest, fire glowing brighter than ever. "This ends where it began." The fire exploded outward, swallowing both of them. The tower split in two. The energy surged through the city, melting the Empire's machines into dust. The sky turned crimson, and from the flames rose a shape, half man, half dragon, wreathed in golden light. Draxon and the dragons roared from above as the Empire's towers fell. The rebellion cheered across the stars. When the fire faded, only Kale stood among the ashes. The Architect was gone. The planet was silent for the first time in centuries. Kale looked up at the sky, feeling the wind brush his face. The medallion, the little alien girl had given him, hung from his neck, glowing softly. He smiled. "It's over," he whispered. "The fire will protect them now." Draxon landed beside him, bowing his great head. "You did what no one could." Kale placed a hand on the dragon's scales. "Not alone. Never alone." He turned toward the horizon, where dawn painted the clouds gold. For the first time, the galaxy was free. As the wind carried the smell of smoke and life, Kale's voice echoed softly. "They threw me into the darkness, but I became the light." The dragons rose behind him, their wings glowing like suns. And as they flew across the reborn sky, every world below looked up, knowing one truth that would be remembered for all time. The human they cast away had become the fire that saved the stars. He looked toward the horizon where the Empire's planets lay hidden among the stars. His jaw hardened. The war had just begun. The stars burned red that night. Across the void, the wreckage of alien ships drifted like ashes after a storm. Between them flew Kale and the dragons, their wings cutting through the silence of space. Each dragon glowed like a living comet, and at their center burned the human who carried both fire and flesh. Kyle stood on Vera's oldest friend, Draxon, the black-scaled dragon who once called her foolish for saving the boy. His voice rumbled deep and heavy as he flew. "I see her flame in you, human child. You have her courage and her rage." Kale's eyes stayed on the stars ahead. "She gave me life," he said quietly. "Now, I will make the ones who took her understand what that life means." Ahead of them, the Varnath fleet gathered. Thousands of ships glimmered like cold knives, forming a wall of metal and death. At their center was a massive dreadnought, the spear of Threxion, the pride of the Varnath Empire. It was there that the Empire's new commander waited, determined to crush the rebellion before it began. "Dragons cannot win against technology," the alien admiral declared to his crew. "Fire is primitive. We are the future." But as the fleet locked their weapons, something ancient stirred in the void. A heartbeat of flame rippled across the stars, the signal from Kale. Draxon roared, and 1,000 dragons answered. The battle began. The first wave of fire met the Empire's plasma barrage in a blinding explosion. The dragons flew like storms given form, their scales reflecting light from burning engines. Kale, standing tall on Draxon's back, raised his hands. A beam of golden fire shot from his palms, slicing through a destroyer's shields as if they were paper. Alien pilots screamed over the comms. "That's impossible. His body's a fusion core!" Kyle's voice echoed through the chaos. "You thought me an experiment. Now witness your creation's fury." Every blast, every strike felt like justice. Each explosion whispered Vera's name. He could almost hear her voice in the roaring of the flames. "Do not let anger blind you, my son. Let it guide you." The Varnath tried to counterattack with drones and plasma nets. Dozens of dragons fell, their wings burning, but for each one lost, 2 more took its place. They were fighting not for conquest, but for vengeance, for the child their kind had once adopted as their own. Inside the dreadnought, the admiral clenched his fists. "Focus fire on the human! End the anomaly!" Dozens of cannons turned toward Kale. He saw them, but instead of fear, he smiled. "Let them come." The sky lit up as the weapons fired, but the blasts never reached him. A vast silver light burst from behind. A dragon larger than any other descended, her wings glowing like the dawn. Every dragon gasped. Kale's heart froze. It was Vera. She was scarred, her scales cracked and darkened by plasma burns, but her eyes still burned with life. "Did you think I would sleep forever?" Her voice thundered through the mind of every creature. Kale's breath caught. "Mother, finish it," she said gently. "Let the fire end this cycle." Kyle raised both arms, the flames within him merging with hers. The light between them grew so bright the stars seemed to dim. Then, with a shout that shook the void, they released it. A storm of fire swept across the battlefield. Alien ships melted, their metal forms folding into liquid under the heat of dragon and human fury combined. The dreadnought cracked open like an egg, its engines bursting one after another until it exploded into a burning sun. Silence followed. Only drifting debris and trails of golden smoke remained. Kale landed on a small asteroid, his breath heavy. The surviving dragons circled above, their roars echoing through the emptiness. Farah descended beside him, her strength fading. "You did it," she whispered. "You gave meaning to my choice." Kyle fell to his knees, touching her muzzle gently. "You taught me what it means to be more than human. More than dragon," she smiled faintly. "Then remember, my child, fire is not only for war, it is for rebirth." Her eyes dimmed, her great body glowing with soft light. Slowly her form turned into pure flame, rising into the sky and scattering into the stars. Kyle watched in silence, his hand clenched over his heart. Tears mixed with sparks on his cheeks. He turned toward the remaining dragons. "The Empire will send more," he said. "But we are not just dragons or humans anymore. We are the flame that cannot die." Draxon lowered his head respectfully. "Then lead us, Kale of fire and flesh. The galaxy will remember this night as the dawn of the Dragonborn." Kale looked at the sea of stars, no longer just endless darkness, but a field waiting to be lit. "Let the Varnath know," he said softly. "The child they threw away has returned with the wrath of fire and sky." The dragons roared as one, their voices shaking worlds. And across the void in the surviving Empire stations, terrified aliens whispered the name of their nightmare reborn. Kyle, the Dragonborn. The galaxy burned with whispers of a name that had become legend. Kale, the Dragonborn. From the outer rim to the heart of the Empire, stories spread like wildfire. Some said he was a ghost made of fire. Others said he was a dragon wearing a human skin. But every story ended the same way. He came for the broken and he made them rise. Kyle stood on the ridge of a shattered moon, the silver light of twin stars shining on his armor. The dragons rested behind him, their wings folded like sleeping storms. Around him gathered thousands of beings, ex-slaves, abandoned species, survivors of the Varnath cruelty. Each had their own scars. But when they looked at Kale, they didn't see a man. They saw hope. Kyle raised his hand, fire glowing faintly in his palm. "The Varnath called us failures," he said, his voice echoing across the valley. "They broke our homes, our bodies, our spirits. But they forgot one thing. Fire grows strongest in the ashes." A murmur spread through the crowd. Then came a roar from both voices and dragons alike. The rebellion was no longer just a dream. It had become a storm. Behind Kale stood Draxon, his black wings stretched wide. "The tribes are ready," he said. "The fleets of 3 worlds will follow you. The rest, they watch and wait." Kale nodded. "Then we'll give them something to believe in." He turned toward the stars where the Empire's banners still flew. The Varnath had rebuilt part of their fleet and were preparing to strike back. But Kale had something they never understood. Unity born from compassion, strength born from pain. That night, as the fires of the camp burned, Kale walked alone to the edge of a cliff. The stars reflected in his golden eyes. He heard a familiar voice in the wind, soft, warm, eternal. "My son, the fire inside you is not for destruction. It is to light the path for others. Vera," he whispered. The wind answered with a low hum like her breath once did. A small alien child approached him, a girl with gray skin and silver eyes. She carried a broken medallion, a mark of the Empire's slave colonies. "Dragonborn," she said timidly, "is it true? You were once human?" Kale smiled gently. "Yes, then why do you fight for us?" she asked. He knelt down, his voice soft but steady. "Because once someone saved me when I was nothing. Now it's my turn to do the same." The child smiled and held out the medallion. "Then take this for luck." Kale took it carefully. It was small, cracked, but it meant everything. "Thank you," he said. Moments later, the night sky erupted in light. Alarms sounded across the camp. Draxon roared, launching into the air. "Scouts report Empire vessels incoming." "Dozens of them." Kale's calm returned instantly. "Everyone to your ships. Dragons to the sky." The army moved with precision born of belief. Dragons took flight, carrying warriors in harnesses forged from fallen ships. Kale leapt onto Draxon's back, fire surging through his veins. As they rose into the void, the stars filled with enemy ships. Plasma fire rained down like meteors, but Kale raised his hands. A barrier of golden flame formed above the rebel fleet, absorbing the strikes. The light reflected across every soldier's face. It wasn't just heat. It was courage, Kale shouted. "For every world they burned, for every child they left in the dark, today we rise. The dragons roared in answer. Their fire painted the stars in colors unseen by mortal eyes. Ships clashed in brilliant bursts of light. Kale guided them like a conductor of chaos, his power linking the minds of dragons and pilots alike. In the middle of battle, Kale saw something new. Varnath ships turning away. Some crews were refusing orders. Some even switched sides. Hope had begun to infect the Empire. The Admiral's furious voice echoed through the comms. They worship a myth. And him! Kyle smiled grimly. A myth can't be killed. He spread his arms wide, flames spiraling around him like a living storm. His energy linked with Draxon's breath, merging into a single beam that tore through the enemy flagship's core. The explosion lit up the galaxy, the night fire of a new era. When the smoke cleared, silence filled the stars. Then came the cheers, millions of them across distant worlds. The rebellion had won its first great victory. Kale stood on Draxon's back, breathing hard, his armor scorched. Around him, dragons circled triumphantly, but in the quiet between their roars he felt something else. A pull, faint and dark, deep within the Empire's territory. Something ancient watching, waiting, he whispered to himself. It's not over. Not yet, Draxon looked back. What do you see? Kale's eyes burned softly, half sorrow, half fire. The shadow behind the Empire. The one who ordered it all. We will find him, and we will finish this, the dragons roared once more, wings spreading wide. The mountain winds carried the sound of Kale's laughter across the cliffs. The boy, now 16, raced along the rocky paths, his bare feet leaving faint trails of glowing footprints. The dragons called him the boy of fire and flesh, half in wonder, half in fear. No creature born of human blood had ever survived in their world, and yet Kale thrived. Vera watched him from the shadows of the high ridge. Her silver scales reflected the morning light, and pride filled her heart. You move faster every day, she rumbled as Kyle leapt from one rock to another, fire sparking under his soles. Kyle grinned, brushing dust from his arms. You said dragons are born of flame, he replied, his voice carrying a tone both human and ancient. Maybe I just have your fire, Mother. Vera smiled, though her eyes held worry. My fire can burn the sky, child. Yours can change it. Kyle didn't understand then. He only knew that when he ran, he could feel something alive beneath his skin, a warmth that never went away. Sometimes in his sleep, he saw flashes. Cold metal rooms, blue lights, voices without faces. He didn't know what they were, only that they made his heart ache. That night, as Kyle sat near the mouth of their cave, he looked up at the stars. Mother, he said softly, do you think others like me exist out there? Vera turned her great head toward him. Perhaps, but the stars are full of monsters, Kale. Some wear faces like yours, some wear none at all. Before he could reply, a low rumble echoed across the valley. It wasn't thunder. The ground shook. Kale's eyes narrowed. Ships, he whispered. Vera's wings opened in alarm. She could smell the same metal scent she remembered from years ago, the scent of the Varnath Empire, the ones who had left Kale to die. 3 alien vessels broke through the clouds, their engines glowing green. They moved with the precision of hunters who had found their prey. Inside one of the ships, a Varnath officer stared at his monitor. Confirming energy signature. It matches specimen 09 after all these years. He paused, his voice trembling with excitement. Prepare for extraction. Kale watched as beams of light cut through the sky. Mother, what are they? The ones who hurt you, she growled. The ones who made you. Before he could move, one of the beams struck near the cave entrance. The blast threw Kyle backward, stones collapsing around him. Feyre roared, spreading her wings wide to shield him. Fire erupted from her mouth, meeting the descending ships in a blazing storm. But the aliens were prepared. They released sonic cannons that shook the air, disrupting the dragon's flight. The ground split open as Vera fell, her wings torn by the shock waves. Kale crawled to her side, blood trickling from his forehead. Run, she said weakly. You must live. No, Kyle said firmly, his voice breaking. I won't leave you. He stood trembling as the alien soldiers landed. Their armor gleamed under the burning sky. They surrounded him, weapons raised. The commander stepped forward, his cold eyes scanning the young man. Incredible, the alien muttered. He survived. The experiment truly evolved. Kale didn't understand the words, but he felt the hatred in their tone. His heart pounded and the warmth inside him turned into fire. Flames burst from his palms, bright and alive. The soldiers staggered back, shouting in alarm. Fire reading, impossible, one yelled. Humans can't generate plasma. Cale didn't hear them. He could only hear his mother's labored breathing behind him. The fire within him pulsed stronger, feeding on his fear, his anger, his pain. The air shimmered around him. His veins glowed like molten metal. Stay away from her, he growled, but before he could strike, a shock dart hit his chest. Pain surged through his body. He fell to his knees, his vision blurring. The aliens moved quickly, binding him in energy chains. Specimen 09 recovered, the commander said into his communicator. The dragons will not interfere. Their kind will scatter. As Cale was dragged toward the ship, Vera roared, her flames cutting through the storm once more. You will never have him, she screamed. The aliens fired one last pulse. The explosion sent her crashing to the ground, her silver scales blackened by smoke. Kyle shouted her name, but the ship doors sealed before he could reach her. Through the small window of the alien craft, Kyle looked down. His world, the only home he had ever known, grew smaller beneath him. Vera lay unmoving among the rocks, the mountain still burning. Tears blurred his vision. His fists clenched, glowing faintly even through the chains. He swore to the stars above, I will return, and I will burn your empire to ashes. Outside, hidden among the clouds, dozens of dragons rose silently into the sky. Their eyes burned like embers following the ship that stole their kin. The stars reflected in their wings, and the air trembled with one promise. The fire was not gone. It was only waiting. The alien ship glided through the endless dark, its engines humming like a distant storm. Inside, the corridors were cold and silent, filled with silver light and the faint hiss of machines. In the lower deck, behind a wall of energy bars, Kyle sat chained to the floor. His wrists burned where the plasma cuffs touched his skin. Each time he moved, the chains glowed brighter, sending sharp pain through his arms. He had stopped struggling hours ago. Now he only stared at the floor, his thoughts lost between anger and grief. Vera's last roar still echoed in his mind. The sound of her fall had torn something inside him. The warmth he once felt, the gentle fire she gave him, was now buried beneath rage. Outside the cell, two alien guards whispered. Commander says he's not fully human, one murmured. The other replied, of course not. No human could survive on Dravar 9, let alone live among dragons. He's something new. Kyle lifted his head slowly. His eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. You speak as if I can't hear you, he said, his voice quiet but cold. The guards froze. They hadn't expected him to understand their language. But Cale remembered every sound, every harsh word from the voices that haunted his dreams since childhood. The experiments, the cries, the cold metal rooms. One of the guards stepped forward, raising his weapon. Silence, specimen. Cale tilted his head. That word? Again. His tone deepened. You called me that before, didn't you? In another life. Before the alien could respond, a surge of heat rippled from Kyle's body. The lights flickered. The guard stumbled back, shouting. For a moment, Kyle's chains glowed red-hot, but the pain returned stronger than ever, forcing him down. An alarm blared through the ship. From the upper deck, a tall alien in black armor walked into view. Commander Threx. His silver eyes glimmered with cruel satisfaction. So, Threx said, stopping before the cell. The failed experiment breathes again. How interesting. Cale met his gaze, silent. Threx studied him carefully. When we first created you, we believed humans were too weak. But your body adapted. You merged with dragonfire. You are proof of evolution through pain. He leaned closer, his face reflecting in the energy field. Tell me, how does it feel to be both beast and man? Cale's jaw tightened. It feels like being neither. Threx smirked. Soon you will help us finish what we began. With your power, the Empire will control the fire that dragons guard. You will be our weapon. Cale laughed bitterly. You think I'll serve you? You already are, Threx replied. Your body obeys the blood we shaped. Your fire exists because of us. But even as he spoke, something deep within Cale stirred, a warmth that wasn't born in any lab. It was Vera's flame. It pulsed softly, spreading through his veins. The energy cuffs flickered again, weakening. Suddenly, a loud explosion rocked the ship. The lights went out. A red alarm flashed across the walls. The guards shouted in panic. Threx turned sharply. Report, what's happening? Through the viewport, fire streaked across the void. Something enormous was approaching, the dark shapes of wings, dozens of them tearing through space. Dragons. Kyle's heart leapt. Vera's tribe. They had come. Threx's voice trembled for the first time. Impossible. They can't fly beyond atmosphere. But the dragons did. Their scales glowed like meteors, their fire cutting through the vacuum itself. The lead dragon roared and the entire ship shook. Kale stood, the cuffs burning brighter, cracking under the heat of his rising power. He whispered to himself, "You came for me." With one final surge, the cuffs shattered. Flames burst from his hands, golden and fierce. The energy bars melted and Kale stepped out, his eyes burning like stars. Guards fired plasma rifles, but the bolts dissolved in the heat surrounding him. Every step he took left marks of molten metal on the floor. He reached the command deck. The glass wall showed chaos, dragons tearing apart the alien fleet, ships falling like dying stars. Threx turned, shouting, "You'll kill us all!" Kale looked at him, calm and steady. "No," he said. "You killed yourselves the day you threw me away." He raised his hands. Fire exploded outward, engulfing the controls. The ship shook violently as alarms screamed. Threx fell to his knees, the heat melting his armor. As Kale walked toward the escape bay, he glanced back one last time. The flames danced in his eyes. "You wanted a weapon," he said softly. "You made a storm." He leapt into the void, his body glowing with dragon fire. The nearest dragon caught him mid-fall, its wings spreading wide as the alien ship burst behind them like a dying sun. For the first time since his capture, Kyle breathed free air again. The stars burned bright around him, and he felt Vera's voice in the wind. "Fire is born from pain, but yours will light the world." The cold air inside the alien laboratory was filled with the hum of machines and the glow of strange blue lights. Metal tables stretched across the room, and the smell of chemicals mixed with burnt circuits filled the air. Behind a wall of glass, something small moved, crying softly. It was a human baby, no more than a few weeks old. The aliens watched him with calm, unblinking eyes. They were from the Varnath Empire, tall and pale with thin silver skin that shimmered under the lights. They spoke in their sharp, metallic language, their words full of numbers and cold logic. To them, the crying baby wasn't a person. He was specimen Eero 9, nothing more than a test. One of the senior scientists, Commander Threx, stood by the table and recorded his notes. Human subject continues to show unexpected resilience. Despite exposure to plasma radiation, cell structure regenerates rapidly. His voice carried no emotion, only curiosity. Another alien injected a glowing fluid into the baby's arm. The baby screamed. The sound echoed in the sterile room, bouncing off metal walls like a plea no one would answer. The aliens didn't flinch. To them, pain was data, but one young alien, her name was Sierra, looked away. She had joined the science team only recently, believing their research would help the Empire grow stronger. But this felt wrong. The baby's small hands trembled, reaching out as if begging for warmth, for a heartbeat that cared. Sierra felt something strange inside her chest, a feeling the Varnath called weakness. "Specimen 09's reaction is inefficient," Threx said coldly. "We will terminate the experiment by dawn." The words hit Sierra like ice. Terminate. They were going to kill him. When the others left the lab for the night, she stayed behind. The baby had stopped crying and only breathed in soft, broken sounds. His tiny chest rose and fell with effort. Sierra stood over him, unsure what to do. For a moment, her reflection appeared in the glass beside his frail body. Two creatures from different worlds, both alone. She whispered in a low voice, "I am sorry, little one." Her voice trembled. She didn't understand why, but she reached into the chamber and touched the baby's hand. It was warm, so fragile yet strong enough to make her heart shake. For the first time she wondered, what if humans were not weak? What if they were something else? Suddenly an alarm blared through the base. A red light flashed. Outside, the planet's crust rumbled. The air grew heavy, charged with energy. The other scientists ran back in, shouting orders. "What's happening?" Sierra cried out. Threx looked at the readings. A storm. Impossible levels of plasma energy. Evacuate the base immediately. They didn't know it yet, but something ancient had awakened beyond their scanners. The team rushed to load the remaining samples and data. When they came to the human baby, Threx waved his hand. "Leave it. It's useless now." "But Commander," Sierra began. "Leave it," he barked. The storm will finish what we started. And just like that, they left the crying baby alone. The doors sealed shut, and the sound of engines roared as their ship lifted into the dark sky. Lightning cracked across the horizon, tearing through the clouds. The storm's energy ripped the laboratory apart, scattering fire and debris across the wasteland. Hours later, silence returned. The sky cleared, revealing twin moons above. Among the wreckage, the baby still lived. His small chest rose and fell, glowing faintly with a strange light, the same color as the dragonfires that once ruled this world. High above, from the mountain peaks, a pair of golden eyes opened. A great shadow moved against the stars. It was a dragon, an ancient being of flame and storm. It had heard the baby's cry. The dragon descended slowly, wings spreading wide over the ruins. She landed near the burning remains of the alien base and tilted her head. There in the ashes lay the human child, still breathing, still alive. The dragon sniffed the air, confused. No creature of this world had ever looked like that, and yet there was something familiar about the warmth in his chest, something powerful. She lowered her giant claw, gentle as a breeze, and touched the baby's head. The moment she did, a spark of light flashed between them. Ancient magic recognizing something new. The dragon's voice was deep and soft, echoing through the night. "You are not of this world, little one, but perhaps this world needs you." She curled her wings around him, shielding him from the cold wind. Above them, the twin moons burned brighter, as if watching the birth of a new legend. The forgotten cry had been heard, and the stars themselves seemed to whisper, "A human has survived." The night winds howled across the shattered planet. Ash drifted through the air like black snow, and the ground still burned from the storm. In the middle of it all, the baby slept quietly inside the curve of the dragon's great wings. When morning came, the light of two suns painted the mountains gold. The dragon Vera opened her eyes again. Her scales shimmered like molten silver, and her breath sent thin lines of smoke into the cold air. She looked down at the tiny creature she had rescued. It moved, soft, weak, but alive. Vera's mind was filled with questions. Why had the aliens left this creature here? What kind of being was it that could survive such a storm? Her kind, the Dravari dragons, did not take in strangers. They lived by ancient laws, never protect the fallen, never trust the skyborn races. But something about this small human touched her heart in a way she did not understand. When the baby began to cry again, Vera lowered her head close. "Hush," she whispered, her voice deep like thunder but soft with care. "You are safe now." She wrapped her tail gently around him to keep him warm. The baby's hand rested on one of her shining scales, and in that moment she felt a pulse like a heartbeat travel through her body. It was as if the child carried fire inside his tiny chest, a spark that resonated with her own flame. Days passed. Vera hunted to feed herself and brought water from the mountain streams. She placed drops on the baby's lips and covered him with her wings at night. Slowly, the baby stopped crying and began to smile whenever she came near. One evening, Vera heard the rustle of wings in the distance. 3 dragons descended from the clouds, massive and proud, their eyes burning with golden light. They were from her tribe, the Sky Talons, and they were not pleased. "Vera," growled the largest, a black-scaled male named Draxon. "We saw your flames in the storm. What creature have you hidden?" Vera moved her body to shield the baby. "It is helpless. It was left to die. I will protect it." Draxon's eyes narrowed. "You break the law. The Sky Talons do not save the fallen. Whatever it is, let the winds take it." "It is not a beast," Vera said firmly. "It is something different. I feel power in it. A warmth older than time." The other dragons hissed in disbelief. "You risk the tribe for a weakling?" One of them snapped. "It will bring ruin." Vera looked down at the baby sleeping between her claws. "Then let ruin come," she whispered, "but I will not abandon him." The other dragons spread their wings and flew away, their roars echoing across the valley. From that day, Vera was alone. The tribe cast her out for breaking their ancient code, yet she did not regret her choice. She raised the baby in secret, hiding him in the caves where the fire crystals glowed. She named him Kale, meaning born from flame. Under her care, Kale grew quickly. His eyes were bright like molten gold, and his skin carried faint lines of light as if fire ran through his veins. By the time he could walk, he would touch the stone walls and make sparks dance. Vera watched with wonder. You are not like the others of your kind, she told him. You are made of something new. Kale would laugh and hold onto her horns, trying to climb her neck. Mama, he would say in his small, broken voice, and each time the sound filled the cave with warmth stronger than any fire. Years passed, and the bond between dragon and human became unbreakable. But deep in the mountains, Vera sometimes felt the gaze of unseen eyes. The other dragons watched from afar, whispering of the fire child raised by the outcast. One night the sky turned red. A flash of light streaked across the horizon, an alien ship entering the planet's orbit. The same kind that had once abandoned the baby. Vera sensed danger immediately. She spread her wings and flew to the mountain peak, the wind roaring around her. Above, the stars glimmered cold and cruel. She could almost hear their machines again. In the cave below, Kyle stared up at the burning sky. His heart pounded without reason, as if something deep inside him remembered pain. The same light that glowed in his veins flared brighter. "Mother," he whispered. "They're coming." Vera's roar shook the heavens. Flames erupted from her jaws, lighting the darkness for miles. The dragons of the old tribes turned in fear, knowing the legend was about to begin. The story of the human child who carried dragonfire in his heart. And far above, in the alien ship that watched from orbit, an officer's eyes widened at the scanner. "Impossible," he said. "Specimen 09 is alive."